We've just had July's Q&A for New World, and I've got to say, it's not been that great. There's a couple of interesting like little tidbits in there, but this Q&A they said was mostly focusing on Season 2. Now, the actual answers don't really relate to Season 2 that much, but what they effectively mean is we ain't ready to talk about the expansion, so we're not going to talk about it right now. And that has led to some people feeling pretty disappointed about this month's Q&A. However, they did say that the expansion Q&A will pretty much be next month, so you can anticipate that that's around the end of August. That, if I'm honest, is when Gamescom is, and might be when we actually get news on the expansion for real, and maybe even a PTR. Now, as coped up as I am for that, let's talk about this Q&A. So the first question was about the raid, and they were asking if they were happy with the win rates. Now, they actually said they are happy with the win rates, and they sort of expect this to be increased when we get the gear score increase. Now, to me, this is such a weird bonkers answer. So what they're saying is they're happy with what we did, and when the gear score gets increased in the expansion, it's actually going to make the raid easier, which means they're not actually going to convert the raid. They're not going to make it any harder. They're probably then not going to change the gear, but it will be more accessible because you can do it. But then why would anybody do it? Because it's easy, and I don't really know if it's going to be worth doing. So it's a bit of a weird one, but maybe that will just be an old raid, you know, like Molten Core is to the Burning Crusade. You can go ahead and do it, but the question would be why? I don't really like that answer because I think players generally want to be doing current content. As I've said many times, I think they should have had a normal and a hardcore mode, keep the version that they have as hardcore, and then have a normal one which would have been more like what we had on the PTR. Weird answer, weird question, whatever. Apparently for every 14,000 tries to 1 kill. Now I'm guessing that's getting much better now, but at one point that was what it was. There was another question about when we'll be able to rename our character, and they said that this is planned, but it's not yet. So I'm guessing that's probably not the expansion, or maybe it is, I'm not 100% sure. And it was literally the same kind of thing for the barbershop. However, the barbershop felt like it was going to be not this expansion, but maybe in the coming months afterwards. Obviously, it's hard to say with timeframes, but we sort of know that this isn't really an update. We know both of these things were coming, we just didn't know when. And then actually one of the more important answers and questions, in my opinion, was regarding PvP hotspots. So we know that the influence changes are going to be coming with Season 3, and I do suspect that that will make a bit of a better time around for when PvP is happening in the world. You'll know where to go and when to go. But it would be nice for people who aren't trying to push influences, who just want reasons to PvP, so they could have things like hotspots and maybe like an event where you just go to a little area on the map and that's where the PvP is. And they said that they like the idea, they talk about it, but they're not like looking to introduce it just yet. I think basically that's the kind of thing they're gonna add, and they're probably gonna add it in the future, but it's not right now. More of that to come, I think, in 2024. And for some reason at this point, I also said like they can't post on Reddit, the devs. They must be banned, which is sort of funny. The next question was also related to PvP, and it was related to PvP as of salt, and basically how there's not that much salt available to what you want to buy. And they say that this is because there's now more good stuff on there that you actually want to spend more, and they're probably going to look at ways of giving you more. Whereas in the past, there wasn't that much you wanted, therefore the salt was plenty. Also, it was a little bit weird at this point because Dave just went, "You're welcome," but then on watching it back, I'm pretty sure it's because the question ended with a thank you. But it was just sort of like, "You're welcome, we did this change, I hope you're happy." Just sort of felt a bit funny at the time. And then the next one is also actually quite huge, and that's regarding fresh start when it comes to the expansion. And the answer here sort of tickled me a little bit. So the first point is that there are actually no plans for fresh start when it comes to the expansion. I sort of got the vibe that if there was enough peer pressure that they might actually do it, but they were saying we don't necessarily think it's worth it right now. We've not necessarily changed enough, like, you know, with the MSQ and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, it's sort of easy to read into that the Brimstone update was worth it and then the expansion update isn't worth it. I don't think that's what they meant. I think it's just because of the like level 60 experience. Maybe they'll do fresh start when they actually finish the level 45 to 60 bit. Either way, it was sort of a bit of a weird answer, but the fact that there's no fresh start, it means that if you were looking at making a character, you might as well just go ahead and do it. There was a question about seasonal content and how it basically wasn't real content, and are they actually going to add real content? And then Scott was like, we actually think it is real content. And to be fair, I think it also is real content. They also spoke about how they are probably going to look at keeping some of the seasonal content. They'd mentioned that before. Specifically here, they mentioned how they kept some of the season 1 story, and in the past they'd mentioned how they're going to keep stuff like the hatchery, so they're going to try and keep some of that seasonal content around because they might as well. And Scott also said that he liked having the storyline that's sort of like not the main storyline, but something that's sort of like bubbling on at the time, and if I'm honest, I like that as well. I think that's actually quite good. I don't mind the seasonal model. I think there are some problems with it. A bit of me sort of feels like it might be better if we had less seasons, but they were bigger seasons. But, you know, maybe there's a reason that doesn't make any sense. Now, the next question was about OPR balance, and they're talking about how basically some of the games are stomps. Now, you may remember that I asked this on Discord, and at one point they answered my question, and they were like, hey, we think Cross Realm will make it easier because there'll be some noobs to stomp. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but that is basically what they asked. And my question was basically, why don't you make it so that Outpost Rush wins don't count if you're in a pre-made for the leaderboard? And they said, well, we don't want to discourage pre-mades, we don't want to discourage grouping. But the leaderboard, in my opinion, is a solo activity. You don't get on there as a team, you get on there as an individual. Anyway, in this answer here, they said, we are now starting to look at the issue. Pretty sure they said that last time as well, but okay. They're probably going to look at like matchmaking, I sort of get the feeling. But yeah, they're looking at it. I will be sort of quite salty if they end up coming to the conclusion that I was suggesting months ago. If they ultimately just say, hey, it doesn't count to the leaderboard, crack on, which I think is a good idea and I still think they should do it. But if they do it this late, it will sort of highlight to me how slow they are in some of the areas. But this has been an obvious issue for months and months and months, and only now are they looking at it. This one's a little bit sad in my eyes. They also mentioned how the siege weapons in OPR might change. They might give you a bit more like flexibility there. I don't really think that the changes they made have had that big of an impact, but am I bothered about that? Not really. There was a question about the debuff bar, and basically like when you have, well, your buff bar actually, like when you have Fortify and stuff like that, you get it from different sources. It's adding a lot of clutter. And they said that this issue is actually quite complex, but they will try and like look into it a little bit. However, Katy sort of replied that when you hit somebody and their health doesn't look like it's going down, it's because they've got so much con. Even though you are doing damage, it doesn't look like it. Do you know what? I'm pretty sure they mentioned about that probably like a year ago. That's been a known issue for absolutely ages, and it's still in the game, and they've still not fixed it. But at least they're looking at it now, I guess. Hopefully they actually do look at it and they actually make some changes to that one though. It would be nice to know that their health is going down when you hit somebody. Feels like a bare minimum really. Now to me there were some noticeable absences from this Q&A. There was literally no mention about transmog, even though we actually think that is coming in August. That might come before the next Q&A even goes live. I have a feeling that might be going live around the 15th of August. Maybe it's not, maybe it's going to be September. Who knows? There was also no question about the performance or the quality of Season 2. Let's face it, the quality of Season 2 has been pretty bad. There's been a lot of bugs and a lot of issues, a lot of performance issues being reported. I'm not going to like talk about them in detail, but I did actually make a list because I was going to make a video about it, but I ditched. But there's been a lot of issues, a lot of things they've had to fix, a lot more than normal. It felt like they had a bit of a grapple on things, a little bit of a handle on things, and now Season 2 sort of feels like they've dipped in that quality. I'm guessing because they're working on the expansion, but it's really a bad time and a bad look. And as I said, this was the Q&A for Season 2, even though they didn't really mention Season 2. The expansion Q&A is going to be next month by the sound of it. I still think we could be getting a trailer at Gamescom. I think that sort of makes a lot of sense. I did actually think Summer Games Fest, so I've been wrong before and I'll probably be wrong again. And then after that, one important thing that they mentioned is a roadmap. So the Q&A after that, or some point down the line, they're going to start talking about a roadmap and what is actually coming after the expansion. And to me, that's almost as important as the expansion. So that will be very exciting. Let's see what we're going to get. Overall, a relatively disappointing Q&A. But it's what we got for now. I'm sort of happy. I still think the expansion is probably going to be bigger than most people realise. I could just be high on the whole copium, but I really do believe it's going to be a banger. And I think this is the calm before the storm. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.